The last big key word here is multisensory, and that just means that we are recruiting multiple pathways to process and remember the information. Now, the research on multisensory phonics instruction is a little bit muddled. It's very difficult to find a large number of studies that specifically compare, which sensory pathways support what kind of memory and learning. But what we can lean on in terms of research is all of the research around memory itself. Research around memory itself. We know that people will learn and remember things better if they experience them, manipulate them, and process them through a couple of different sensory pathways or modalities. So if they don't just hear the information, but they hear it and say it, hear it and say it and write it. So you'll notice that there are routines that are built into word study or any phonics instruction that help kids go back and forth between modalities or sensory systems so that they can recruit those pathways to help them process and remember the information. So even just a word sort, if kids are saying the word and seeing the word, they've got two pathways going already. You might have other routines like see, say, write, or you might have other routines within the word study where they are writing the words into the list, where they're saying them as they write them, or tapping them as they write them. And all of those are just ways to make sure that we're recruiting more sensory pathways to process and remember the information. There are lots of ways you can do this with games and in songs, and that's why we think of phonics as something that people often run to Pinterest for, because there's lots of cutesy ways to do it. However, remember, phonics is supposed to be systematic. So even if you get cool ideas from Pinterest, we want to make sure that we are teaching the sounds and the letter patterns in a predictable sequence that follows that developmental continuum so that kids can really develop strong foundations to build on. And they don't have like one sound here and one sound here and a wall that kind of comes crumbling down. So there are lots of ways to get those senses involved. And we want to make sure that we're recruiting them consistently, providing lots of practice with feedback, with different modalities, seeing and saying and writing in different ways, in the air, on the page, on my arm, all different ways, so that I can recruit as many pathways as possible to process and remember the information. And I want to make sure that that information comes in an explicit form that is systematic in sequence.